Welcome back to the Stripe Developer YouTube channel. Today we have Ranjit, who's the head of product for the UK and Ireland, joining us to break down the biggest announcements and developer takeaways you've just heard from the Stripe Tour London keynote. So welcome, Ranjit. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I think one of the most staggering stats we heard this morning was how there's over 2,000 UK software platforms that are servicing over hundreds of thousands of UK businesses, almost acting as this operating system for entire industries. From a developer's perspective, how does Stripe help teams kind of scale and reach thousands of businesses at once?
I think for developers and especially solopreneurs in particular, you should think about Stripe as an augmentation to your existing team. We are an infrastructure player, so we do very well in enabling you to build on top of the capabilities that we have. Connect is a great example and a historic example of how we've been able to do that at scale. Things like Connect onboarding or embedded components really give you the ability to focus more on your product, on the surfaces and the interaction with your customers, whereas Stripe handles all the back-end complexities of everything from PCI compliance to KYCs for accounts that you onboard, AML checks, fraud screening, and all of that. So it helps obviously lean teams being able to achieve a lot more, but also focus more on their core product and core value proposition while leaving the infrastructure side back to Stripe.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned now we're kind of this abstraction layer, and you mentioned things like Connect. And we heard from the keynote some massive updates in the embedded finance, from issuing for agents to wallets for marketplaces to Connect payout expansion. What are you most excited to see developers build with these new product announcements?
I'm particularly excited about issuing for agents. I think that's a big unlock for the Agentic commerce suite that we're broadly announced and has been rolled out in the US, soon to be rolled out here by end of this year in Europe as well. So I think being able to give agents a predefined, well-controlled virtual card for them to accomplish tasks unlocks a whole set of new use cases that we probably haven't seen before. Everything from procurement becomes easier. You can programmatize a lot of your manual operational processes, like maybe paying for AWS spend. That works. You can assign an agent to be able to do it. You could probably do it through your Cloud Code interface itself, giving it enough autonomy, but also under the watchful eyes of all the controls that you play in to go and make purchases on your behalf. So I think that's the real unlock between what we are seeing now, which is probably still the inception of agentic commerce, to the true autonomous agents actually going and buying. So that I'm definitely excited about, along with the Agentic Commerce suite, of course.
No, that's a really good point. And I think Agentic Commerce has been a really big theme this year. I think one of the things that developers are really asking about is how we can make sure that we're being able to safely issue these cards to AI agents. And it feels like this massive shift in autonomous commerce. What are some of the use cases that you're starting to see developers build against when leveraging issuing for agents?
A lot of this centers around the example that I gave earlier. Like, think of it like procurement, quote unquote, spending, where you don't want to be impeded on token costs or not having enough tokens provision for whatever you want to run while you are in the process. So as you are going through a development cycle and you realize you need maybe some more provisioning of tokens that needs to happen, you need to kind of provision a few more clusters in AWS and you need to spend for that. That part is typically a blocker and an inhibitor for fast-moving software development. So I think agents, I'm seeing more developers starting to roll out autonomous agents with controls again, with predefined amounts, going and spending for those specific tasks. And then that extends to broader procurement spending as well, like marketing spend, for instance. Agents can be assigned a marketing budget and then be told under certain guidelines where they need to spend it, how they need to spend it, and then let them go and do it. Maybe Google Ads or whatever they want to do. That really gives you valuable time back to be able to go focus on maybe your core proposition, any other thing that you want to focus on in your business.
Giving even more kind of autonomy to your agents. So that's
and the agency to yourself, right? Like, you're saving yourself time rather than having to go through checkouts and enter your details, go through it, pay, come back, maybe get the keys from there and so on. So I think it's just a lot more seamless in terms of process that can be achieved.
I think another thing that we're starting to see is really how do we combat fraud? So what kind of new fraud patterns are you starting to see or expect to see in the new age of AI?
Yeah, I think token theft is one that I think we've or has been in the news quite a bit. We are seeing a lot of emphasis on trying to crack down on new patterns that are starting to emerge, like free trial abuse. It was always a thing, but it wasn't as prominent before. It's becoming way more prominent now because a lot of the tools and like AI capabilities that everybody's adopting starts with a freemium model where you use it, test it, it works, you then pay. So that's being exploited. There's obviously the token theft, as we already mentioned. There's increasing emphasis on managing fraud patterns upstream. So I'm seeing a lot of developers and also just merchants in general invest more in having much more robust fraud controls up top than being able to like deal with disputes later or incur the cost of maybe lost tokens, for example, which obviously are quite expensive now.
I think we had a ton of announcements in the radar space too around Radar actually factoring in these types of abuses into our models. So now developers are able to kind of hand that off to Stripe to worry about the logic and the additional context from the buyers that they're starting to see.
It's also the combination of those controls and having, let's say, the agentic wallets like OneLink, for example, which also it's our consumer-facing wallet, which you can kind of consider as the agentic wallet of Stripe, where it has the capabilities of going and making purchases on your behalf, but it's powered off the back of radar signals and fraud signals that the merchants see. So that combination, I think, is quite powerful in tackling these new age threats that are coming up.
Well, there were so many great announcements today. So thank you so much, Ranjit, for joining us. And make sure to tune in to hear more about exclusive interviews that we're going to be sharing right here on the ground at Stripe Tour London.